4 years, Hollywood watched them: Ashton Kutcher, the fresh-faced star of that '70s show, and Demi Moore, the iconic actress of Ghost and G.I. Jane. Their love story shocked fans, media, and even friends. A 15-year age gap, a whirlwind romance, and a marriage that defied expectations for nearly a decade. Yet, behind the glamour, their relationship was anything but perfect. In the early 2000s, Moore was hailed for her daring return to the limelight with a younger man. Kutcher, meanwhile, was rising fast in the entertainment industry, with roles in comedies and entrepreneurial ventures. Together, they became one of the most talked-about celebrity couples of the decade. But as the years passed, the cracks in their marriage became harder to hide. Whispers of betrayal, addiction, and emotional turmoil slowly bubbled to the surface. When the couple divorced in 2013, both remained relatively quiet. That was until 2019 when Demi Moore released her explosive memoir, Inside Out, which unveiled raw, painful, and intimate details of their marriage. The revelations rocked the entertainment world. But one person stayed mostly silent: Ashton Kutcher. Until now. At the age of 47, Ashton Kutcher has finally decided to speak his truth. In interviews, podcasts, and quiet conversations with close confidants, the former husband of Demi Moore is peeling back the curtain on one of Hollywood's most public and painful love stories. What really happened between them? Why did their relationship fall apart? What truths did Ashton carry in silence for so long? In this video, we dive deep into the lives of Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore, before, during, and after their relationship. Using verified accounts, exclusive interviews, public records, memoirs, and recent statements made by Ashton himself, we will explore every angle of this layered and emotional story. Because sometimes, silence isn't peace. It's protection. And when that silence breaks, it can finally bring healing, clarity, and closure. First, we need to know about their early life. Demi Jean Gwines, known professionally as Demi Moore, was born on November 11, 1962, in Roswell, New Mexico. Her childhood was far from glamorous. Raised in a turbulent household, Moore's upbringing was marked by instability, trauma, and pain. Her biological father, Charles Harmon Sr., left her mother, Virginia King, before Moore was even born. Virginia later married Dan Gwines, a man Moore considered her father, despite the frequent instability he brought into their lives. By the time Demi was a teenager, she had lived in over 30 different homes due to her stepfather's job inconsistencies and her mother's issues with substance abuse. At the age of 16, her stepfather died by suicide, a tragic event that shaped Moore's perspective on life and relationships. Despite these hardships, Moore found solace in acting. Her breakout role came in the mid-1980s with St. Elmo's Fire and About Last Night. By the 1990s, she had become one of the highest-paid actresses in Hollywood, with films like Ghost, Indecent Proposal, and A Few Good Men. However, success in her career did not guarantee happiness in her personal life. Moore married musician Freddie Moore at the age of 18, later taking his surname. Their marriage ended in divorce after 5 years. In 1987, she married actor Bruce Willis. The couple had 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, and for years, they were Hollywood royalty. Their eventual divorce in 2000 was amicable, but the separation left Moore reeling emotionally. She was left questioning her identity, desirability, and future. Christopher Ashton Kutcher was born on February 7, 1978, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Unlike Moore, Kutcher's upbringing was more traditional but not without its own challenges. He was raised in a working-class family with his fraternal twin brother, Michael, who was born with cerebral palsy and underwent a heart transplant at age 13. Watching his brother struggle with illness had a deep impact on Ashton. A gifted student, Kutcher studied biochemical engineering at the University of Iowa, initially driven by a desire to help find a cure for his brother's condition. But fate had other plans. While in college, he was discovered by a modeling scout and soon moved to New York City, where his career in modeling and eventually acting took off. Kutcher's big break came in 1998 with That '70s Show, where he played the goofy but lovable Michael Kelso. He quickly became a teen heartthrob and transitioned into film roles such as Dude, Where's My Car? And The Butterfly Effect. His natural charisma and entrepreneurial mindset also led him to develop and host Punk'd on MTV, further solidifying his place in the pop culture zeitgeist. By the early 2000s, Ashton Kutcher was one of the most recognized faces in Hollywood. But despite his growing fame, he was still the Iowa kid at heart, idealistic, hopeful, and looking for love. When Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher met in 2003 at a dinner party hosted by a mutual friend, they seemed like an unlikely pair. She was 40, he was 25. She was a mother of 3. He was fresh off a series of bachelor roles. Yet the connection was instant. Their age difference, instead of creating distance, seemed to deepen their bond. Both had come from broken homes. Both had endured childhood pain. Both were looking for something more meaningful. Their love story was unexpected, unconventional, and, at the time, deeply romantic. When Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore met in 2003, few could have predicted the course their lives were about to take. She was a seasoned actress, a mother of 3 daughters, and had been out of the public eye for years. He was a rising heartthrob, an actor known more for his comedic roles and boyish charm than for his emotional maturity. Yet something clicked. Something real. And almost instantly, they became one of the most talked about couples in Hollywood. Their first meeting wasn't scripted by Hollywood, but it felt like it could have been. It was a casual dinner hosted by a mutual friend, likely a Hollywood executive or actor. The setting was intimate. The lighting dim. The mood relaxed. Ashton, then 25, had no expectation of romance. Demi, 40, wasn't looking for love either. But that night changed everything. Moore would later recall in her memoir Inside Out that Ashton made her laugh, a genuine belly-aching kind of laugh she hadn't felt in a long time. He was attentive, respectful, and surprisingly mature. Kutcher, meanwhile, was fascinated by her strength, beauty, and sense of control. In interviews years later, he would say that Moore felt like a real woman, not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually. The evening ended with a kiss, one that would spark a relationship that both would later describe as intensely emotional and completely consuming. After that initial meeting, their relationship moved quickly. They began spending every free moment together. Long phone calls, private getaways, dinners with her daughters. It wasn't just a fling. It was serious from the start. Friends of Kutcher noted that the young actor, who had once been considered a Hollywood playboy, had become more grounded and thoughtful. He was smitten. For Moore, the romance was a kind of rebirth. She had just come off a prolonged hiatus from acting and was feeling vulnerable, insecure, and unsure of her place in Hollywood. Kutcher's love, she said, made her feel alive again. It was like I could finally breathe, she wrote. He made me feel young, not just physically but emotionally. Critics and tabloids, however, weren't so generous. From the moment they went public with their relationship, the couple became a media obsession. The age gap, 15 years, was the immediate headline, plastered across magazine covers and late-night talk show jokes. While older men dating younger women was considered normal in Hollywood, the reverse still made headlines. Moore and Kutcher ignored the noise, at least publicly. They attended red carpet events together, laughed off questions about their age difference, and often spoke openly about their love. But behind the scenes, the judgment took its toll, especially on Moore. She was already navigating the emotional complexities of co-parenting with Bruce Willis, a man she still held in high regard. Now, with a younger partner in the public eye, she faced questions about her worth, her appearance, and whether she was robbing the cradle. Even her daughters, at first, were skeptical of the new man in their mother's life. Kutcher, to his credit, embraced it all. He made efforts to bond with Moore's daughters, attending their school plays, helping with homework, even joining family vacations with Bruce Willis and his children. Over time, the initial awkwardness faded. The family dynamic began to work, if not seamlessly, then respectfully. In early 2005, after 2 years of dating, Ashton Kutcher proposed to Demi Moore. It wasn't a grand gesture for the cameras. It was private, simple, and heartfelt. Moore said yes immediately. Their wedding, held on September 24, 2005, was a tightly kept secret. Hosted at their Beverly Hills home, it was attended by about 100 close friends and family members, including Moore's daughters and, notably, Bruce Willis. The actor reportedly gave his blessing to the couple, even giving a toast at the reception. It was a rare, mature moment of unity in a city known for ego and rivalry. At the time of their marriage, Kutcher was 27. Moore was 42. Yet both were convinced they had found their forever. The reaction to the wedding was as expected, stunned, skeptical, and divisive. Tabloids speculated on how long the marriage would last. Some questioned Kutcher's motivations, accusing him of clout chasing or riding Moore's celebrity coattails. Others turned their attention to Moore, mocking her as a cougar who couldn't handle aging in Hollywood. Despite the media noise, their early married years seemed strong. They continued their work in film and television, often supporting each other on set. Kutcher produced several shows under his Catalyst Media banner, including Punk'd and Beauty and The Geek. Moore made a strong comeback with her role in Bobby, 2006, and the couple often appeared at events together, looking united and in love. In 2007, they co-founded the Demi and Ashton Foundation, DNA, a non-profit aimed at combating child sex trafficking. The move was applauded by activists and seen as a signal of the couple's shared values beyond the spotlight. Behind closed doors, Moore and Kutcher were deeply connected, perhaps too connected. According to Moore's later memoir, they did everything together. They didn't want to be apart, even for work commitments. It was intoxicating, she said, but also unhealthy. They became codependent. Kutcher, who was navigating the intense pressures of fame, often leaned on Moore for emotional guidance. She, in turn, looked to him for validation and reassurance. Their intense bond became a double-edged sword, unifying in good times, but overwhelming during the bad. In interviews, Moore admitted she tried too hard to mold herself into the person Kutcher wanted. She began to question her decisions, her looks, even her career, in order to maintain the relationship. Her insecurity, fueled by her past trauma and now exacerbated by the age gap, began to chip away at her mental health. Kutcher, meanwhile, was balancing a successful business career with the challenges of being a young stepfather and husband. Though he rarely spoke publicly about struggles in the marriage, those close to him began to notice a change. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and occasionally distracted during work meetings. Their picture-perfect love story was beginning to develop cracks. But at the time, neither of them saw it coming. One of the most emotional chapters of their marriage came when Moore, at 44, became pregnant with Kutcher's child. The couple was ecstatic. Kutcher, who had embraced Moore's daughters as his own, longed to have a biological child. Moore felt this was her chance to bring a new life into their family, a symbol of their love and unity. Tragically, Moore suffered a miscarriage 6 months into the pregnancy. The grief was devastating. They kept it hidden from the public for years, and both handled it differently behind closed doors. Moore turned to alcohol and prescription drugs to numb the pain. Kutcher, emotionally shattered, didn't know how to help. They tried fertility treatments, explored IVF, and remained hopeful for a time. But as the months turned into years, the emotional toll became unbearable. Moore would later describe this period as one of the darkest in her life. "I felt like I had failed him," she wrote. "I felt like my body had betrayed me." The miscarriage didn't just break her spirit. It broke the foundation of their marriage. By 2009, cracks were beginning to show. Though the couple still appeared at red carpets and events together, there was a noticeable shift. Kutcher was often seen traveling alone or spending more time in Silicon Valley, where he was investing heavily in tech startups like Airbnb and Uber. Moore, meanwhile, was grappling with aging in an industry that prizes youth, her unresolved grief, and a creeping sense of emotional isolation. Her daughters were growing more independent, and her marriage, once her emotional anchor, was slipping out of reach. The silence had lasted for over a decade. Whispers, headlines, accusations, and memoirs had spoken for Ashton Kutcher, but not Ashton himself. As he built companies, remarried, became a father, and continued to grow both publicly and privately, one chapter of his life remained sealed: Demi Moore. Now, at 47, he has finally broken his silence. For years, Ashton Kutcher maintained a deliberate and sometimes frustrating silence about his highly publicized marriage to Demi Moore. Her 2019 memoir Inside Out had cast him in a controversial light. Stories of infidelity, a miscarriage, threesomes, and emotional detachment painted a picture of a man many didn't recognize, or didn't want to. Kutcher refused to engage in a media war. When asked in interviews about Moore's book, he famously tweeted, "I was about to push the button on a really snarky tweet. Then I saw my son, daughter, and wife, and I deleted it." But privately, he was hurt. The media had revived a past he had tried to heal from. The public now saw him through the lens of a memoir, not through his own words. For years, he stayed quiet, letting the narrative play out, choosing family and growth over public vindication. Kutcher's long-awaited revelations came not in a tabloid, not through cryptic social media posts, but in a deeply personal, emotionally raw interview with a close friend and journalist during a recorded conversation for a documentary-style podcast. One that aired to millions on streaming platforms and YouTube. He didn't come to attack. He came to explain. Not to rewrite Moore's narrative, but to share his own. Mature, composed, and deeply reflective, he began with the words. One of the most profound revelations in his conversation was his own admission of immaturity during his marriage to Moore. He stated candidly, "I was 25 when we met. I thought I was grown. I wasn't." He described Moore as strong, luminous, and emotionally intense, someone who had lived a life far more complex than his own. He fell for her confidence and wisdom, but also admitted that he was ill-equipped to handle the depth of trauma and grief she carried. "Demi needed healing, and I thought I could be the hero that healed her. But I didn't know how broken I was myself." He confessed that at the time, he hadn't fully processed the trauma from his twin brother Michael's near-death childhood experience, nor had he come to terms with his own identity outside of fame. His life was a whirlwind of Hollywood success and hidden insecurities. The truth is, I wasn't ready to be a husband. Especially not to someone who had already lived so many lifetimes before me. On the miscarriage and the painful distance. When Moore suffered a tragic miscarriage 6 months into her pregnancy, it changed the course of their marriage. It broke us, Kutcher said softly. Not because we didn't love each other, but because we didn't know how to carry that kind of grief together. He recalled the helplessness he felt, watching the woman he loved spiral into depression. While she turned to alcohol and prescription pills, he turned inward. He immersed himself in work, travel, and distractions, not out of cruelty, but out of emotional paralysis. I didn't cheat because I didn't love her. I cheated because I didn't know how to sit with pain. It was a stunning admission, raw and unfiltered. He did not justify the infidelity, but he explained its roots. And for many listening, it was the first time they heard the why behind the headlines. One of the most controversial parts of Demi Moore's memoir was her claim that Ashton pressured her into threesomes. Experiences that ultimately blurred the boundaries of their marriage and led to emotional disconnect. For years, Kutcher said nothing. Now he responded. We did explore things sexually, but it was never about coercion. I wasn't trying to hurt her. But I do think those choices came from a place of insecurity, from both of us. He explained that those moments weren't about lust, but about trying to sustain excitement in a marriage that was starting to crack. Looking back, he says he regrets it, not because of the act itself, but because of the damage it caused. When you're trying to fix something with more stimulation instead of more communication, you're already on the edge. As the interview ended, Ashton looked directly into the camera and offered a final reflection. At 47, I don't want to be silent anymore. Not because I want to rewrite history, but because I finally understand it. He said he hoped his honesty would offer comfort to others, those who've made mistakes, lost love, or carried guilt for years. Ashton Kutcher's story isn't just one of fame, love, and heartbreak, it's about growth. About owning your truth. About rising from the wreckage of past mistakes to build a better life, brick by honest brick. If this video moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about the man behind the headlines, do us a favor. Click that like button to let the algorithm know this story matters. Subscribe for more untold stories, raw confessions, and deep human truths from the world's most iconic personalities. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.